This is the 5-minute guide to the Courbet-class battleships of the French Navy. France was slowest off the mark in the dreadnought race of all the major navies at the time, to the extent that they ordered an entire class of 6 semi-dreadnoughts the year after the HMS Dreadnought was launched. As a result, the first French dreadnoughts were ordered in the middle of the second generation of construction, which shows in some of their design features. The class comprised 4 ships: Courbet, France, Jeanne Bart, and Paris. A unique feature in their design was a much greater concern with underwater hits, and without the comprehensive torpedo defense systems developed later on, the designers decided to extend the armor belt well below the waterline, compared to other ships. As a result of the greater area covered, the armor, at 11 inches thick, was thinner than British or German counterparts. At 25,000 tons fully loaded, the main armament consisted of 6 twin turrets carrying 12-inch guns, a pair super-firing forward, another pair super-firing aft, and one on each side. This gave them a heavier broadside than first-generation dreadnoughts, but the use of wing turrets meant the overall firepower was somewhat less than most second-generation ships. The pair of turrets at the front weighed the ship down, and meant they took a lot of water over the front in heavy seas. Due to a relatively small maximum elevation, the guns were also somewhat short-ranged. The secondary battery consisted of 22 casemate-mounted 5.4-inch guns, which ironically for a dreadnought outranged the main battery. A handful of anti-aircraft guns and 4 torpedo tubes, each with 3 torpedoes, completed the ship's loadout. The engines were designed to give the ships a speed of 21 knots, although in practice they proved to be slightly faster than this. In World War I, with the North Sea locked up by the Royal Navy, the French Navy spent most of its time in the Mediterranean, and all 4 ships spent most of their time here, although the Jeanne Bart and France were on their way back from Russia when war was declared, but as it turned out the German Navy was either unaware of them or unwilling to try to intercept them. Their primary duties consisted of escorting French troop convoys from North Africa and helping Italy keep the Austro-Hungarian ships bottled up. In the course of these duties they managed to catch an Austro-Hungarian cruiser trying to blockade Montenegro and sink it, before providing fire support against the enemy army. Jeanne Bart was torpedoed at the end of 1914 by the submarine U-12. In true French fashion, the torpedo hit the wine storage, but made it to Malta for repairs, although this meant that most battleships were of limited use for a while, because the close waters of the Mediterranean and the lack of an anti-submarine doctrine early in the war meant it was dangerous for larger ships to operate too near an enemy with access to submarines. After the war, the France had the dubious distinction of being the only full dreadnought battleship to be sunk after striking Iraq and Quiberon Bay in 1922. The survivors were modernized several times, but their huge list of weaknesses, including but not limited to, no director control for the guns, poor elevation of the main guns, weak protection against torpedoes, thin deck armor and coal firing, meant they became obsolete compared to modern German and Italian ships, even though some of these issues were fixed. Paris had a brief period of excitement bombarding coastal batteries near French Morocco after local forces launched an attack in 1925, but by the 1930s they were designated as training ships. At the start of World War II they were ordered back into service, and Courbet attempted to bombard the 7th Panzer Division in the defense of Cherbourg, but without spotters was somewhat ineffective. Paris performed a similar role at Le Havre. After the Paris suffered minor bomb damage, both it and the Courbet sailed for British ports with evacuated men, and were present on 3 July 1940, when they were seized as part of the plan to stop the French fleet falling into Nazi hands. Paris served the rest of the war as a depot and barracks ship, before being returned to France in 1945 in the same role, and being scrapped in 1956. Courbet was likewise used as a depot ship until the D-Day landings, where she was scuttled as a breakwater for one of the temporary harbors set up 3 days after the landings. Jeanne Bart was demilitarized and became a school in Toulon in 1936, and stayed there throughout the war. Once the Germans occupied Vichy France, she was used for experiments with large-shaped charged warheads, until she was sunk by the Allies in 1944, before being broken up in place beginning on the 14th of December 1945. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching. If you have a comment or favorite ship class, let us know, and we will add it to the list for review.